German hybrid of Rui Costa and Kaka, or an overhyped golden boy that will ultimately prove inferior to Pedri and Musiala? Just how good is Florian Wirtz?
Fast play, Wirtz, Florian Wirtz makes it three! Florian Wirtz!
In terms of goal threat, Wirtz exhibits exceptional composure in front of goal. He's someone who's got a shot accuracy rate of 50%, which is really, really high. He's someone who, when he's running through on goal or finishing under pressure, he's got a really calm demeanour and it allows him to choose the right finish for the situation. In terms of his range of techniques, he's someone who can pass it into the net with finesse. So even when he's cutting in from the left, he can shoot with finesse. He's got the ability to make volleyed finishes, particularly when he's making runs, ghosting into the box, and he times that movement correctly, but then he also finds the right finish for that volley. He's also got the ability to snapshot from closer distance, particularly with his weaker foot as well. He's good with that. Power strikes from distance. This is more with his right foot from distance as well. He can also dink finish as well. So he's got that creativity and adaptability, particularly in 1v1 situations. Now we touched upon this already, but his ability to use both feet is really, really impressive. He's someone who wrong foots defenders and even goalkeepers to go back onto his left foot, and then he puts the finish away. In terms of variety of goals, we've spoken about it. He can score any type of goal. In terms of comparison to players, someone like Lampard, Jude Bellingham, with Wirtz's ability to score the types of goals he can, he should be pushing for those type of numbers. He should be one of the leading players in whatever league he goes into in terms of goal scoring. Obviously, he won't match a number 9, let's just say, but in terms of cams, like De Bruyne type numbers, Bruno Fernandes previously, he should be hitting those type of numbers, particularly with his overall shooting ability and his composure in front of goal. Hey guys, Pythag here with a number of big announcements, but before I do, first, a massive thank you for all your support over the years. I wouldn't have got to appear on the BBC without all your help and promoting our work in social media. For those who haven't been able to watch the appearance yet, I've put up a free video on our Patreon in the description below so you can watch the full appearance. Now, onto the big announcements. Now, everyone knows that Pythagoras in Boots is the nickname of a certain Johan Cruyff. Now, the big announcement is that Jordi Cruyff, his son, and Albert Capellas, his former right-hand man at Barcelona, former head of academy, former assistant manager to Johan Cruyff, got in touch with us to ask us to become partners of Cruyff Football. Now, as part of that relationship, I've been asked to host the Cruyff Football Tournament in Barcelona. The likes of Man City, Ajax, Barca are going to be sending their youth teams from age 12 to 19, and I'm going to be covering it all and putting the coverage up on my social media channels, including YouTube. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait. It's from December the 6th to December the 9th, so please tune in and also check out their website. Now on to our second major announcement. I've just passed my FIFA agents exam, so now officially a FIFA licensed football agent. So if you're a young player who needs advice, whether it's nutrition, whether it's technical, tactical, psychological, I can guide your career from academy level all the way to the pro level. If you're an existing pro level player and you need representation when it comes to contract negotiations, as well as all that technical stuff, transfer strategy, what's the best steps to take with your career, we can give you that guidance. We also work closely with clubs and directors of football, helping them with issues such as scouting, how to get the best out of their personnel, giving coaches tactical guidance as well. All the services that we can provide are all available on our website. Check the description below. So if you want Pythagoras in Boots as your football agent or even as a consultant, please don't hesitate to get in touch.
In the Bundesliga, 14 goals 80 or later, worth 14 points in their title win.
In terms of his possession game, Wirtz is a midfield orchestrator. He's deeply involved in his team's build-up play and overall possession play. His ability to dictate play and link play, I think it sets him apart as a traditional number 10. He's reminiscent of old school maestros like Zico, Platini, Maradona. He averages 60 passes per game and he's operating with an impressive 85% pass accuracy. 60 passes per game is register numbers. So clearly this is a guy who's not like a Bruno Fernandes type of player. Wirtz seeks to maintain control and continuity in possession, but he also takes calculated risks, which we'll touch upon in the creativity section. Generally adept at quick interplay, executing intricate 1-2s. He's creative in tight spaces. He can wriggle out of tight pockets and then use a little trivela to keep the possession going. Overall, his dribbling ability really helps him to become more press resistant, and he uses it very well with a high level of IQ.
What a transformation this club has seen since the arrival a year and a half ago of Xabi.
Wirtz's imaginative approach to passing is both a strength but also an area for growth. His ideas are bold, expansive, but his execution can at times fall short. Compared to someone like Cole Palmer, Palmer is more precise, measured, particularly in terms of executing passes, but Wirtz compensates with a ability to use both feet, which then gives him more range in terms of his passing and a variety of angles. He does have a broad passing repertoire. He's got drilled through balls. He can also come in off the left wing and play those inverted balls over the top, which we'll touch upon in the long passing section. So he's someone who overall could be a high impact creator compared to someone like Pedri, who's waiting for the perfect moment to deliver. Wirtz exhibits greater urgency and variety. So I think in the long run, he's going to be more prolific in terms of creating chances and grabbing assists, even though his accuracy is overall slightly lower. I think his style leans towards like a De Bruyne, where there's a good mix of volume, vision, execution that prioritizes effectiveness over perfection.
During Carnival time in the Rhineland, a special time in that area. And by
Whilst Wirtz doesn't dribble as frequently as a Musiala, his success rate is notably high. I wouldn't say he's as alien-esque as Musiala either, but he carries the ball a lot more often than players like Cole Palmer, Jude Bellingham, or someone like Martin Odegaard. He's a lot more athletic as well, and progressive runs are a key part of his game. His dribbling is deliberate, it's effective, it's often used to break lines or create space in advanced positions. In terms of key attributes, I think close control. He's got exceptional close control, particularly in tight spaces. I wouldn't say it's as good as Pedri, but once he's inside the penalty area, he shows great composure to create shooting opportunities. That two-footedness really enhances his dribbling unpredictability. He can almost pretend he's going onto his right foot and then just flick it with his left around the outside. And that allows him to evade defenders who are struggling to anticipate his movements. In terms of like which areas he prefers to dribble from, I think he's at his best when he dribbles from that left half space, gliding past players with balance and precision, a bit like a Rui Costa in his prime. In terms of his athleticism, I think it lies between a Pedri and a Musiala. He's definitely more athletic than Pedri, but not as explosive as Musiala. He's quick, he's capable of sharp changes of direction, but I think in terms of a weakness, I think he needs to become a bit more stronger to consistently dominate physical duels that will really allow him to push past players and stay past them. Inside the box, tight quarters, he's very comfortable. He finds angles for shots or passes. I wouldn't say he's suited to being a traditional winger due to that lack of elite pace, but in terms of a wide midfielder with freedom to roam, we saw in the Germany's European campaign, he was pretty effective. So I think from that type of role, it could definitely work. Hey guys, just to let you know, we've just created a new channel. It's going to be more like a podcast type of setting. You're going to meet the rest of the Pythag gang, in-depth analysis as always, but in more team-based type scenarios, more hot topic based content. So please subscribe to the Pythagoras Perspective. And also, if you're interested in watch-alongs and weekly fantasy football discussions, also consider subscribing to us in our playback channel. All of these are available in the description below. See you guys there.
In by Hoffmann. Florian Wirtz with a header from the edge of the penalty area. Ambitious.
In terms of his heading, it's the weakest part of Florian Wirtz's game. In terms of his engagement in aerial challenges, it's half-hearted. He often fails to impose himself physically, in stark contrast to a Jude Bellingham who approaches every duel as if he's the son of Marouane Fellaini. Wirtz's approach lacks aggression, doesn't use his body effectively, nor does he demonstrate a willingness to leap or compete with conviction in 50-50 situations. In terms of goal threat, non-existent. He can occasionally find himself in good positions inside the box, but overall I think he shows a lack of spatial awareness or a lack of willingness to find that space, to find pockets inside the box. When it does come to him, he misses clear chances, so he doesn't really know how to use which heading technique at the right time. Yes, he's 21, so there's room for growth in this area. He needs to adopt a more determined attitude towards aerial duels, improve his robustness, timing, decision making. So his ceiling, whilst it's not particularly high, because he's so bad at it at the moment, there's definitely room to grow here.
No team that finds solutions to problems.
In terms of his defending, Wirtz wins over 60% of his defensive duels, which is an impressive rate for an attacking midfielder. He's not as dynamic defensively as someone like Musiala, but he's got this ability to anticipate opposition passes and react quickly, and that allows him to intervene effectively. I think his defensive awareness and reading of the game suggests that he's a player who could contribute to the team beyond attacking responsibilities. His anticipation and understanding of passing lanes, I think it makes him a viable option for roles that demand greater defensive discipline. Like I said, I think in the future these qualities could serve him well if he becomes more of a regista style playmaker deeper in the midfield when his career progresses. When Wirtz wins the ball, his ability to transition the team from defense to attack, I think that's a strength. He's got that composure, dribbling, passing, which allows him to quickly exploit spaces left by the opposition. So he's quite a useful player in counter-attacking situations. I think in terms of areas for improvement, I think one-on-one, he doesn't really have that elite pace, power and physicality. So at times he can get mogged by the opposition, compared to someone like a Jude Bellingham, who's a lot better at using his strength and aggression more effectively. But there's definitely overall potential in terms of defensive IQ here.
Ball as well. So where Wirtz ended up. Crossfield pass.
Radetzky clear.
In terms of his long passing, 56% accuracy rate is not to be sniffed at, but I wouldn't say at the moment statistically he's matching up to a Jude Bellingham. There's room for improvement. But he's someone who's willing to take risks, and if he fine-tunes his consistency in this area, that's going to enhance his reliability as a long passer. In terms of his toolkit, it's pretty diverse. His switches of play are generally well weighted, they show good vision. In terms of when he's cutting in from the left, he's got this almost Zidane-like ability to deliver curled balls over the top. And there's a real air of elegance in terms of how he delivers them. In terms of, half volleys, drilled balls, which are, daisy cutters, I think he's got potential for, producing some really nice passes. I wouldn't say he's Paul Scholes level in terms of technique, but I think there's a base level here which is pretty good. What I really like though is that the ball almost pings off his foot. So he's got this minimal exertion type technique where if he sees a pass, he just plays it. Doesn't matter how the distance, how far it is, it will reach the target because he's got this natural power. He generates effortless distance with his passing. Overall, I think his long passing, there's a lot of potential here. Yes, there's room to grow, but I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a real significant asset in his game. So we'll start off by looking at Wirtz's role at Bayer Leverkusen. We know that Xabi Alonso likes to play in a 3-4-2-1, and Wirtz's role is as an inside forward. Usually he plays off the left, operating in this left half space. And the beauty of this system is that the wing backs provide the width, and that gives freedom to the inside forwards to come off the flank and roam in these inside channels. And you'll see Wirtz in from this left half space. At times he can even drift out wide, put crosses in, where he can feed through balls. And he can also finesse balls from distance and take shots on goal. Or at times even ghost into the box, and say a Frimpong was to put a ball into the box, Wirtz can find himself inside the box, to support the centre forward. Now, Wirtz is also a unique number 10 in terms of, compared to a Musiala or a Jude Bellingham, when he comes back here, he can link up with the midfield and be very comfortable in orchestrating the tempo and, dictate the game in terms of where the ball goes. He's someone who's like we've mentioned before in the possession section, he's a high volume influencer in terms of how many passes he makes. He's constantly moving off the ball to create options for his teammates off the ball as well. Essentially, to get the best out of Wirtz, you need to have a system which allows him to roam and influence the game as he sees fit. He's a real free spirit in that sense. For Germany, we see that Nagelsmann has kind of adopted a similar strategy to a Xabi Alonso in terms of, with Wirtz, he lets him have the freedom to roam into inside channels because the fullbacks are given the freedom to bomb forward and provide the perpetual width. It's quite a risky system because you haven't really got three at the back when Germany are in possession. They've actually got two, although at times you see Andrik sitting to create that three at the back type of setup. But normally what you're expecting to see is two centre-backs at the back. And Wirtz, again, you can see him either operating in this left half space, or at times if Musiala is playing from the left and he plays from the right, in the right half space. I wouldn't say he's got as much freedom to operate in these central areas because Nagelsmann has, he's preferred to use someone like Gundogan in this number 10 role here. So he's slightly more restricted, a bit more of a wide playmaker rather than a pure number 10 under Nagelsmann. But generally, I'd say Nagelsmann's done a good job of getting the best out of Musiala and Wirtz by letting the fullbacks take responsibility for the wide areas and giving these players the freedom to operate in the half spaces. Again, with Wirtz, I wouldn't say he's got as much freedom to combat and, facilitate the build-up play like he has under Alonso, but perhaps that's a good thing for him because he's closer to goal. He's focusing more on being a threat rather than taking on responsibilities for all these different thirds on the pitch. Now, we've covered where Wirtz currently plays, but in terms of future projection, he's being linked to a host of big clubs across Europe. Now, if he was to stay in the Bundesliga, there's only one club that he can go to, and that's Bayern Munich. Now, if we look at Bayern Munich's current setup, where would a Wirtz fit in. It's quite difficult to envisage because at the moment they've got Musiala in this number 10 spot behind Kane. For me, the only way it could potentially work is if you've got a Musiala in the left half space or even a Wirtz, and then Wirtz comes into this position here. Now, obviously, there's 12 players on the pitch, so one player would have to go. Now, for me, they'd have to make some sort of sacrifice where, for example, let's just say Coleman comes out of the team here, and you've got Davies bombing on. Then you could have, let's just say Wirtz plays from the left, Musiala from the right. Or no, Musiala goes to number 10. Elise comes into this position. And then you've got sort of a lopsided formation where it's a 4-2-3-1. But the three are basically, wide midfielders who can come in. You can even have Musiala rotate with Wirtz. That could potentially work. I think Guerrero would need to be a right-footed player, so I would take Guerrero out, get a new fullback in who can provide the width. And then this would be closer to what we're seeing with Germany. I think the issue is, though, I think Kane, because he drops in here a lot, I think for the Bundesliga, you'd probably be fine. But I think if you're going into Champions League type of football, you would need a more penetrative striker there. So imagine if they signed like a Gyökeres type of centre forward and he was predominantly in the box, then I could see that potentially working where Wirtz could go to Bayern Munich and it could work. Now, we know that Wirtz's childhood club is Barcelona. He's a Lionel Messi fanboy. So we'll start with Barcelona first. Where could he play if he went to Barcelona? Now, for me, the issue is he's a very similar player to a Pedri, but Pedri in recent years, because of his slight physical issues, he's playing a bit deeper in the pitch. So then that frees up potentially a number 10 spot for a Wirtz. But for me, is this midfield now? It's very techie on the ball. Now, let's imagine you've got Wirtz there, Casado playing as the pivot. You've got two real ball players there. But I'd argue that off the ball, yes, I think both players do work relatively hard, but there's a lack of physical substance here in terms of that pairing. Now, if you had, let's just say, Pedri at the side, and you put Gavi in there, then potentially that looks slightly a bit more balanced, in my opinion. But let's just say we go with that original midfield, and let's just say Gavi's part of that midfield three instead. Okay, so let's just say that's the midfield three. Where else could you see Wirtz potentially play? I think potentially if you took Rafinha out the side, you could put Wirtz into this left-sided role here and expect Balde to go on the overlap. But I think personally, you then see a lack of verticality from Barcelona. And I think you see similar issues to where João Felix was used under Xavi. So for me, Wirtz to Barcelona, I don't think it's a real natural fit, in my opinion. Now, let's move on to Real Madrid. Now, again, they're stacked in terms of, players that can play in this sort of whole region. You've got Jude there. I think Rodrigo could potentially play there as well. If anything, I think this is the future for what Real Madrid need to do, where you've got Mbappe there, Vini there, and Rodrigo as a false nine. That's what I would like to see. And then I would like to see Camavinga in the pivot. And I'd like to see Tchouaméni or Jude there. But if you did get a Wirtz here, then that potentially works. But look at the names that you're leaving on the bench there. You're leaving Bellingham, Tchouaméni, Güler. So for me, for Wirtz to go to Real Madrid, there needs to be massive transfer decisions made. Certain big names would need to go. Otherwise, you've got too many cooks in the kitchen. So yeah, he could go to Real Madrid. Xabi Alonso could go to Real Madrid. Tactically, it could work. But some big names, for example, Jude Bellingham, in my opinion, would need to be sold in order to give Wirtz the freedom and the platform to start. Going to Man City, in terms of the playing profile, I think it makes sense. However, the club is very unstable going into the next 2 seasons. Someone like Haaland could find himself in Spain. A lot of big names are probably going to leave. So I think unless there's a guaranteed, project, new wave of the project that's going to really be top end, I think going to Man City is a huge risk for a player's career at this moment in time. Now, with regards to Liverpool, that's also an option for Florian Wirtz. Now, this position in the Liverpool midfield where Jones has kind of made it his own in the past few weeks, but Szoboszlai was slightly struggling in that position. Wirtz could easily come into an Arnie Slot team and really make that position his own. Now, what you could argue is that, does he have the deeper lying influence, not just in terms of on the ball, which I think, I've touched upon. I think he's quite good in terms of deeper lying areas, but Jones puts a lot of shift in off the ball. Now, we know that Wirtz also has good work rate, but I think Jones approaches it more like a central midfielder, whereas Wirtz is more like an attacking midfielder tracking back. So the balance could potentially be out of sync if you've got Wirtz in there. And I think you lose a bit of physicality of Jones with Wirtz there as well. So, but nevertheless, I think Wirtz to Liverpool would be a decent option for Liverpool. I think he could fit into their style of play. I don't see Xabi Alonso moving to Liverpool anytime soon. I think Arnie Slot will be settled there. So that's a potential option for Liverpool. Another team that Wirtz has been linked to is Manchester United. Now, it seems strange because obviously they're in the doldrums. They're a club that shouldn't really be able to recruit big talent at this moment in time. But because of the new manager, Amorim, playing in a 3-4-2-1, which is very similar to what Wirtz is used to at Bayer Leverkusen, it makes him quite a treasured asset for Manchester United if they were to go for him. He's tailor-made, I think, to come into this setup and play as one of these two inside forwards there. So if you got Wirtz into this setup, I could easily see him thriving in these inside left spaces. The problem is the rest of the team isn't really well suited to bringing out the best in him. I don't think someone like Dalot on the flanks is really going to bring out the best in a Wirtz. At the moment, they've got someone like Malacia, but he's not good enough to really dominate this flank. Likewise, on the other side, there's no real width in the team either. If you put someone like Garnacho there and Amad Diallo instead here, I think the two inside forwards here look good, but the striker thing is an issue. Again, someone like Højlund will really need to step up to make that work. So, but if United get Alphonso Davies and play him in the left wing-back position, then suddenly these two signings from the Bundesliga could really transform that 3-4-2-1. So I don't think... In conclusion, I think the most complete number 10 of his generation is Florian Wirtz. I think he's more of that traditional number 10 who can do a bit of everything. He can play make, he can control the play, he can score goals, he's got skill, he's got flair. I think someone like Jamal Musiala relies heavily on his dribbling. He can score the odd explosive goal, but there's a lack of power to his game. I think someone like Jude Bellingham, he's more about industry. Yes, he has skill as well, but he also can't really dictate play in deeper areas. I think when he's a box-to-box midfielder, he lacks a bit of mobility. I think what Wirtz brings to the table is that layer of class where he can really glide with the ball in tight areas. And I think with his physical frame, I reckon his dribbling, it's going to stay at a higher level longer than a Jude Bellingham. And I also think from a longevity point of view, I think Wirtz, even if he lost his physicality and his speed, I think he'd still be a top player. Whereas I can't really say that about Musiala and Jude Bellingham. I think athleticism plays a much bigger part in their style of play. I can imagine them at 30 not being as effective, whereas I think someone like Wirtz, even at 33, 34 with no legs, I think he could drop into central midfield and still be a really, really good player. So for me, he has all the hallmarks of potentially being an intergenerational talent. I think he's someone, if I compare him to De Bruyne at Wolfsburg, I think he's got more to his game. I think he's more mobile, he's more agile. I just think he needs to obviously fine-tune his decision-making across different aspects of his game. He needs to get physically more robust. I think at the moment he's too soft in terms of his heading. It's pathetic. But all of this stuff can improve to a degree where he's more competitive as a spirit, as a player on the pitch. And I think if he does that by going to the right club at the right time, that could really transform his game. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And see you guys again next time. Bye.
For Guardiola, joy for Mourinho.